Hello, this is Josh Pasmore giving a tutorial on the ACT process. Now, here you're looking at our ecosystem tools that we have to help people build their ethos and their ecosystems. And right here, all participants in the ethos will start with the Gen Plan template. And so what we have here is you create a template. And if you're going through our ethos eco DAO building course, you will get walked through this. And once you create this Gen Plan template, it's got a template for you. So you'll say how these things are all working. And within this, it'll have an explanation, a sample, and you'll be able to fill out your own. So for example, in decisions, it's just sending you to the ACT version as the example. However, of course, using this process, you can create whatever you want. If you want to be an ethos and you want to be part of an ecosystem, there will be specific requirements. But in general, you can make whatever you want happen here. So for example, with values and principles, you might have an example of values and principles that we will give you. You can use these, you can change them, you can do anything you want here. And there'll be an explanation of what's necessary to keep and what's not. So this is all templates that will help you build your eco plan and your gen plan or your general plan or generation plan. Now, this is critical for a reason. It's like building a house plan before you start building the house. When you're moving forward and decisions come up, you've got a plan on how to operate, how to handle that decision. Now, accompanying this, of course, is the ACT process. This is for updating decisions. So once you have this plan in place, it's required, then you're able to update solutions. So when you have a critical solution that needs to be implemented, or if you have a next step that needs to be filled out, you'll come to your ACT process. Now, for day-to-day decisions, we have our blueprints. We just build as a team. We have what's called the culture code to help people with communication tools and to build a culture of effectiveness, efficiency, body language, hand signals, all these things that help us get through, communicate clearly, and do our day-to-day tasks. Now, when some major changes happen within our ecosystem, Omni, we use the ACT process. So if you're an ethos within the Omni, for example, when major decisions come up to the board, you would use this. And when it has to do with the ecosystem. If it's changing what you've submitted to the ecosystem, whether it's your gen plan or a spec plan on how you're going to build a product that's part of a larger ecosystem, you would use this. And you would communicate with the correct domain, which I'll get to. So this is all available, and it talks about the process. First, we assess the proposal, and we look, is it critical or is it a preference? Okay, and there's details on all of this. Now, in a startup, we definitely only want to focus on critical solutions. Sometimes solutions that aren't critical or emergent solutions can be accepted also. And we get to decide this. We're just giving you the templates to run your own ethos. And you'll get to decide which of these you want to allow into your ethos and how many proposals you would like to have show up. Now, once again, we suggest you don't take preferences because you'll be flooded with random proposals that don't really help. And when you become a larger ecosystem, beyond usually around 20 people or around 3 teams, you'll start to look at domains for decisions. And a domain is who's affected by the decision. So we've got one for Omni 1. We can give you blueprints, but for now, let's not worry about that. Let's just say that whoever's affected by the decision gets to decide. If you're a decider, now you're going to also get to choose what it takes for someone to become a decider in your organization or your ethos. So we suggest, or how it works in Omni 1, is you have a team. That team is in consensus with someone coming on board. So everyone's happy together, working together. They test it out, they road test it. And then at some point when it feels like the person's coherent, competent, and can communicate correctly and has learned the right information they need to learn and is on what we call onshoring, then you get to give them the decision-making ability. And that means that they can jump in and help make decisions. Now, we do have a solutionary decision process, so there is no no's, there's only yes ands. It's here's a proposal. This is the solution that we have that we need a solution for this problem, or we need this next step to complete our mission. Here's the solution that I suggest, or that we suggest as a team. And then other people get to look at that, give advice, and either say, yes, that's cool, sounds great, or yes, and, right? After they've given advice, and that's the next process. They assess it, and then they get advice. So let's say that you've assessed your proposal, it's worth proposing, you propose it, and you get advice on it. Now, this is all outlined. I just want to show you really quick. This is all outlined in our proposal area. This is how we do on Notion. Now, in the future, I'll update this video when we have an application that makes this much more solid and fluid. And that is needing to be developed. Right now, this does work really well. This is a proposal table that we have set up and built within the Notion space. So basically, if you're going to write a proposal, you'll start with a template. Once again, we have small and large templates. And then we have onboarding proposals, which are a little different because they involve a different subject matter, and we have the templates for those. Once you create your template, let's just take a look at a small ones are very easy. And you have who's proposing it, what are the dates, all these things. This will help you know when it's submitted and when it gets passed. You'll fill it out. You'll attach any necessary documents. In some cases, you attach a document that might explain things better, and you submit it. And so if your status is being written, submitted, say it's submitted, it's going to show up. It's a template, right? Submitted, small proposal template. And so when that changes to passed, it'll go to the archive section of past proposals. If you're still in the advice process, it'll be over here. Got it? So you can delete that. And then these are the past proposals here, such as the ecosystem agreements that we have, the ethos agreements, fields, etc. So let's go to the OmniOne workspace and back to the ACT process. So you've submitted, you've gotten advice from your friends, and you've either incorporated that advice or not. Usually so far, over the years, about 99%, actually only one decision ever had to get past this. We submit it and it gets full enthusiastic yes, whole body yes. This is a great thing, let's do it. And we read it together, but we have had a small teams that we've been working with, and it works really good in small teams. And as you get bigger, you do have to look at the domains and involve more people, which could be a little harder. But you get the yeses or you get a yellow. And there's an example of what the response types are. Yellow is a yes and, red is a no. The only time you can say no is when you're having a preference. So if you do allow preferences in, that means that you've all already decided on a decision. You've all colored the walls red, for example, and somebody wants to change them to pink. It's a preference. It's not a solution to anything. Like, highly doubtful that that would be a solution. So since everyone was on consensus, everyone would need to be consensus to change that. So that's an example. Now, let's say that you don't get a full teal response on your critical solution. Someone says, yeah, and I've got something that I gave you advice on. You didn't put it in your proposal, and I really think it's valid. So they write another solution. This is solutionary culture. If you don't just block someone and say they can't do it, you have to have a better solution. If you don't, then you're then you haven't pitched in. You haven't done. You're just saying no to something that you're not allowing someone to fulfill a solution that needs to be fulfilled. If there's a solution for it, we need to find it. This is a self-autonomous, responsible society. And so if we can solve our own solutions on our own as a collective, we will not need governance governing over us. And this system is built on non-force. That's the premise behind it. So we're not forcing anyone to make any decisions. We're allowing everyone to do anything they want. So I'll give you an example of that. Let's say there's 2 proposals in. Since these are big decisions, we go through decision iteration or sense making, and we take all the tools that we want. You can add to these. You can do as much sense making as you want to try to come up with one decision so that everyone's happy. This is a consensus type of environment so that we're all happy with the decision. If that just can't happen, then we look, can we do both? Once again, we're still in consensus because we decide, okay, well, we can do both and everyone can be happy. This is what most models don't use currently. They don't even consider that option. They just sit in their home, they make a yes or no, and that's it. There's no chance to get yourself involved, to make proposals. So this is a dynamic solution that can bring us forth in humanity past the king and queen model and potentially create a blueprint that can scale. Now, the last thing is if you can only do one decision, not 2, we do have a value-based decision model. And you can see the chart in the pamphlet for the ACT process. But basically, it's the values, to take the values that you've signed up for as a ethos, maybe as an ecosystem, and you take a look at them and you say, well, which values are a match to our to this proposal? So we have ourselves, the community, and the world. So we say, these are our values. Does decision A or proposal A match my personal value of freedom, wellness, abundance, etc.? Does it match my community's or my ethos value of freedom, all these things, compassion, and the world? And you'll come up with an answer. This, decision A is 65% aligned with your values, B is 25, and C is 95. Okay, well, you've agreed. This is the agreement that we're making when we're joining either an ethos or an ecosystem or both, is that we will use this, the value-based decision model, as a decision resolution methodology. Now, what this does is our values guide us towards our vision of life, towards where our heart wants us to be. Values are always good. There's no value of polluting. It's the value, there might be a value of being empowered or surviving, but the values are always positive. So we decide within our gen plans what our values are, and that's going to guide us to our future. And so the decision that matches your values better is the decision that will be chosen. And that means that will guide you towards what you're all trying to create together, what you've said you're creating together. It brings integrity to fulfilling the mission that we're all on together as a part of an ethos. We have a time limit in these things. You can mess with these. All these things are customizable. And once again, the values guide us to where we're going. You can make principles based on that, a value of fairness, principle of do unto others, or everyone should have equal whatever. And then agreements are the actual boundary of the society, because if you just say everyone should be nice to each other, that's a very vague statement that's non-measurable. So people are going to constantly be arguing over what that means. So therefore, you do need agreements to back these up that make sure that if it's measurable, you can dictate and understand what that looks like. Now, we did spend 2 years going over the Declaration of Agreements, which is agreements meant for a society with 40 people. So we do have a lot of work done on this. And this all goes along with this decision-making, because you've got to have a very solid scope of where you're going before you make any decisions. And you got to know how you're making decisions together. So that's the ACT process. We appreciate it, and we hope to see you in an ethos.